B1 brothers and sisters, welcome to Blacklogic. And today we're going to go over how voting for Republicans still may not be a viable choice in reference of tangibles. Because from the promises made by Lyndon B Johnson in the signing of the Civil Rights Act to the overlook of Special Order 15 by General Sherman, we have to contextualize how Abraham Lincoln freed the slave by the Emancipation Proclamation for the benefit of the Union. And what they were trying to accomplish is to be the most wealthiest, most powerful party. And by doing this, they tend to eradicate slavery. Some people felt as though Abraham Lincoln had a heart for slaves, but that wasn't the issue, because he has been recorded in stating that if he could win the war without slaves, he would have, meaning that we will still be in bondage and still enslaved. And we have to understand, by the way of General Sherman in Special Order number 15, the lack of tangible benefits for our family is evident. We need to explore the need and the debt that's owed for reparations and within the package of anti-hate crime bills and land grants and tax-exempt status. And these are essential demands that Black Americans are owed. Because despite the historical alignment with the Republican Party that we had prior to 1968 in the signing of the Civil Rights, and this is forgotten history for a lot of Black Americans, they don't understand that their very recent ancestors were Republicans. That majority of Black Americans were Republicans, but the failure to deliver on promises of Special Order number 15 and then the signing of the Civil Rights Act, and despite the historical alignment with the Republican Party, there's still a lack of trust because of the intangible support that has not been given, even on the Republican standpoint. Well, Lyndon B Johnson was very devious, very manipulative, and he said it himself. If we sign this bill, we'll have Black folk, we'll have niggas voting for us for the next 100 years. And family, we're already at 60 years roughly. So we don't understand both political parties. We're going to fall for both of the tricks. Voting is not, in the imaginable standpoint, voting is something for something, not something for nothing. And a lot of people are looking at this from a country perspective. I understand that. But when your people have been deprived of advancement in this country, there's a lot more that we should look at. As we take a look at the Republican Party here, family, it says that the Republican Party, also known as the GOP, the Republican Party, also known as the GOP, it's one of the two major contemporary political parties in the United States. It emerged as the main political rival of then the dominant Democratic Party in the mid-1850s. And the reason why the Democratic Party had that political majority, or was the most powerful party, until Republicans rise to fame, is because the Democratic Party was mostly the Southern Dixiecrats that had all the enslaved Africans, also known as Foundation Black Americans today, with a mix of Native Black Americans who were already here. They had the majority of them enslaved and accumulating funds from free labor, okay? And this is one of the key reasons why America has risen to the most powerful country in the world, is because even though we're one of the youngest countries, we had a head start economically, almost times 10. No other country, for as long as it lasted, especially in the revolutionary age, industrial age, mechanical age, have had a jump as any other economy, okay? So the Republican Party, it states here in the United States, is one of the two major political parties, the other being the Democratic Party, During the 19th century, the Republican Party stood against the extension of slavery. They stood against the extension of slavery to the country's new territories and ultimately for slavery's complete abolishment. And during the 20th and 21st centuries, the party came to be associated with the fair capitalism, low taxes, and conservative social policies. The party acquired the acronym GOP, widely understood as the Grand Old Party. In the 1870s, the party's official logo, the elephant, is derived from a cartoon by Thomas Nast and also dates back from 1870. So I just want to kind of give you a quick breakdown of the Republican Party. But now we're going to jump right to General Sherman, because I think it's important for us to, not that it's not, let me take that back. It's not that it's that important, family. It is that General Sherman decided to give land to those freed Black Americans after the war. And I really wanted to take a deep dive on Sherman, but we're going to do a brief overall on General Sherman here, okay? We're going to do a brief overall on General Sherman. It states here that General Sherman was not an ardent opponent of slavery, okay? But he was vehemently against the idea of Southern secession over the issue. He repeatedly warned his Southern friends of the dangers they faced taking on the more prosperous, industrialized North, but to no avail. He resigned his position after Louisiana seceded in January 1861. So when I read that, he necessarily wasn't for slavery. And he warned that the North was more powerful because industrialization. And during that time, a lot of people either ran away from freedom or got their freedom papers and went north, because at this time that he's referring to as at the end, this is after mid 1800s. And don't forget 1863 Emancipation Proclamation. It was ratified, I think, 2 years later. Okay. And when I looked at the history, there was one significant point that really called out to me, family, about the importance of General Sherman and then his stance of what he was trying to do by Special Order Number 15 and give freed slaves 40 acres and a mule and a certain plot of land. And we're going to read some of that special order, because I think it's imperative to read that order, because this was the first form of reparations that this general proposed, okay? That this general proposed. So let's move over there. Let's move over there. I'm gonna blow this up for you guys, but this is very, very powerful in my opinion, okay? Again, this is Special Order Number 15, January 16, 1865. This is General Sherman. He says the islands from Charleston south, the abandoned rice fields along the rivers for 30 miles back from the sea, and the country bordering the St. Johns River, Florida, are reserved and set apart for the settlement of the Negroes now made free by the acts of war and the proclamation of the President of the United States. At Beaufort Hill, and this is coming from the Library of Congress, okay, so this is on record. At Beaufort, Hilton Hill, Savannah, St. August, and Jacksonville, the Blacks may remain in their chosen or accustomed vocations, but on the islands and in the settlements hereafter to be established, no white person whatever, unless military officers and soldiers detailed for duty, because they understood by giving Negroes this land, they will also have to protect them, because they couldn't protect themselves. They didn't have weapons, okay? But even though they had a couple of civil rights soldiers coming back, but they didn't have enough to protect such a large area. So they say, hey, no white people whatsoever, except for those officers and enlisted folk who will be essentially guarding these perimeters. It states will be permitted to reside, and the sole exclusive management of affairs will be left to the freed people. Listen to that. Basically, he's stating they should govern themselves. Unless, will be permitted by the side, and the sole exclusive management of affairs will be left to the free people themselves, subject only to United States military authority and the acts of Congress. Similar to the Inter Bureau's affairs, they still had to answer to the U.S. government in some regards. It goes on to state that by the laws of war, and orders of the President of the United States, the Negro is free and must be dealt with as such. He cannot be subject to conscription or forced military service, save by the written orders of the highest military authority of the department, and under such regulation as the President of Congress or may prescribe. Domestic servants, blacksmiths, carpenters, and other mechanics will be free to select their own work and residence, but the young and able-bodied Negroes must encourage to enlist as soldiers in the service of the United States. Encourage, not made, encourage, to contribute their share towards maintaining their own freedom and the securing rights as citizens of the United States. Negroes so enlist will be organized into companies, battalions, and regiments under the orders of the U.S. military authorities and will be paid federal, will be paid, fed, and clothed according to law. The bounties paid on enlistment may be the consent of the recruit go to assist his family in settlement and procuring agricultural implements, seed, tools, boats, clothing, and other articles necessary for their livelihood. Whenever 3 respectable Negroes, heads of family, shall desire to settle on land and shall have selected for that purpose an island or locality clearly defined within the limits above, the inspector of settlements and plantations will himself or by such subordinate officer as he may appoint give them a license to settle such island or district and afford them such assistance he can enable them to establish a peaceful agricultural settlement. The 3 parties named will subdivide the land under the supervision of the inspector among themselves and such others as may chosen to settle near them. Okay, so basically he's saying that 3 families get together, you guys can rock out together and kind of form your own compound. And this was for security. The way I looked at this was for security, family, not for anything else. Okay, so that was just a breakdown. And then one thing hit me about General Sherman. Good evening, Mindy. Good evening, DSB. And Mindy, yes, it is real. It is real. Right there, Library of Congress. The reason why that document does not have any weight, did you hear me? The reason why that document, okay, doesn't hold any weight is because General Sherman was not U.S. regular Army Federal. He was a U.S. volunteer general. He was a U.S. volunteer general. So essentially, some people stated that this letter or this order never got to President Lincoln. And some will also argue that General Sherman didn't have the authority to give away federal land because he's not a federal general, even though generals at the time had the power to write special orders. And they backed by Congress and by the president on the battlefield or some of these decisions right after the Civil War. A lot of generals given a lot of power to do whatever the hell they wanted to do. But anyway, you're giving away land that belongs to the federal government, that has to come to approval because he was just a U.S. volunteer. He was part of the U.S. volunteer service. He was not a U.S. regular Army general. So that particular documentation didn't hold any weight, family. It didn't hold any weight at all. Okay? It didn't hold any weight. So, I mean, stating back, just kind of giving you guys a overview of particular things, we need to take a trip down memory lane. Because before Lyndon B Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act, in 1964, as I stated, majority of Black Americans were Republicans. And because of the legacy of President Abraham Lincoln and General William Sherman, we understand that Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, which was a landmark in our journey to freedom, regardless of why he signed it. Okay, we already kind of went through that. And then, by the way, of Special Order Number 15, promising 40 acres and a mule to the newly freed slaves. And we have to understand that that promise was later rescinded, leaving us high and dry. But despite the betrayal, we clung to the Republican Party because our belief in self-reliance, our belief in low taxes, our belief in creating businesses and building value within our communities, And to a certain point, a lot of them just became non-political, right? Some were publicly Republicans, and some of them just like I'm done with it. If we fast forward today, Republicans still tout the benefits of reduced taxes and minimum government. Okay, so I understand why some people once were leaving liberal and left now are trying to read conservative and right. Because these are some of the ways to economic freedom. See, don't forget the history of the Democrats. Don't forget the history of the Dixiecrats. That's a slave party. They used to control. And by encouraging big government, you encourage control. You encourage socialism. Because, see, here's the thing. Even on the conservative side of things, they wave the flag of conservative social policies and limited government regulation. But if we are real about it, these policies sound good in theory. But where are the tangible results for the Black community? Where are the reparations for the hundreds of years of free labor that have built this nation? And I know the rhetoric. I know the perspective of people who are totally against this. And that's great. And that's fine. But throughout history, Black Americans have been deceived, have been manipulated and exploited. We were promised restoration and recompensance. But time again, those promises evaporated into thin air. I mean, if you really look at the aftermath of the civil rights movement, there was Republicans that were pledging to restore Black prosperity. But again, we don't think that as empty promises and broken promises and empty words and word salad. And then we break down Special Field Order number 15, which is basically the law's document of hope. That's what it is, the law's document of hope, family. It's the law's document of hope. Because this was a direct promise of land and an economic foundation. Imagine if Special Order number 15 was actually honored. The Black vote would have been solidly Republican for generations, but instead it was revoked. And we were left without economic base that could have transformed our communities. We wouldn't be in the state that we are in now. We'll be in the state of the Koreans when they came over here and immigrated and living in these nice neighborhoods around the country and building businesses. Because we've seen glimmer and glimpse of these very same things that we've already built, but then was destroyed. Because a lot of people will say to me, well, why aren't you guys doing that? Because we've done it. And we continue to do it, and they continue to destroy, and we continue to rebuild. Why do you think there's a racial wealth gap? We are owed a very comprehensive reparations package, a modern day Special Order number 15, to repair, restore, and rebuild the Black American family. We're talking about a debt that's already accumulated to $40 trillion in climate. And I know there's a lot of naysayers. Oh, you're not going to get that money. Or some people will make it even personal. I'm not paying you that money. My tax dollars won't go to you. And no one is fighting against the Native Americans. Do you know why no one fights against reparations that the Native Americans are receiving? Does anyone know why? Because the white power structure in America said that we're going to give Native Americans more land, more money, more tax exemption status, and nobody's going to do nothing about it. And everybody else from different countries who speak down and speak about and speak against to foundational Black Americans about reparations, no one is saying about a whole group of people who are sitting on sovereign land, that don't have to pay taxes, that the reservations are federally funded when it comes to school infrastructures, okay, the healthcare, everything is federally funded on reservations. Then they can build billion-dollar businesses like casinos and shops that they don't have to pay taxes on. And then they are incentivized by tax dollars. But no one wants to talk about that. And family, as I stated a million times on the channel, I'm not hating against the Native Americans, but we also have to understand that there are a lot of Black Native Americans. Not every Black person came over on a ship. There were already Black people here. When you look at foundational Black American history dating back from 1526, those Spanish conquistadors, as their slaves was revolting on ship, right, trying to start this colony of roughly 100 enslaved Africans, they stated that when the Africans revolted, that they brought over by the way of Spain and Portugal, after they revolted, that they ran off in the woods, that people that had dark colored skin and looked similar to them. They didn't say red, they didn't say brown, they say dark colored skin that looked similar to them. So we have to make sure that that history is concrete inside people's minds as well. And it's just not about land. If I give you land and you have $2 in the bank, what are you going to do with land? What are you going to do with it? I just got some land. I got a couple of acres, man. I got about 5 acres. What you doing with it? Nothing. I don't have enough money to do to it. And then you're going to be tied into the system. This is how they tie into the system. Okay, we're going to give Black people land. And you know what? We're going to do one more big step. You don't have to pay taxes on the land. Now, some of us, we're going to gather our resources and we're going to build. There's going to be others who's just going to let the land sit because they don't have enough money. And then if they borrow against the land, depending on their business credit or personal credit, they create an LLC. There's just so many variables, family. The reason why reparations have to start with cash payments. Because this is about systematic restitutions of centuries of exploitation and exclusion. That's what this is about. And I think a lot of people don't really see it that way, because now in today's social political climate, we see neither Democrats nor Republicans stepping up with real solutions. Both sides have failed to deliver any sort of anti-hate crime bill that is specifically protecting Black Americans. Oh, well, you get your protections from the civil rights. Then why did you make a protection bill for Asians? Why are you making protection bills for Jewish people? Why you make protection bills for the LGBTQ community? Why either gender specific or race specific are you making these anti-hate crime bills? But we don't have one, and we have the most hate crimes on record in this country. Because other groups receive specific protections and support, and we are left vulnerable to hate crimes and systematic discrimination. Consider the legislation. Both parties have passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. They were supposed to be victorious and a win for Black folk, but the benefits have been spread thinly, so thinly, we haven't seen the concentrated impact that our people need. And while Republicans often play on the fear of social upheaval, if they're not elected, the reality is neither side has given us any sort of economic lift and protections that we deserve. We need to demand more and really hold our vote as a bargaining chip or as ransom, or our vote is for sale, because Republicans claim to support economic freedom. Well, it's time for them to put their money where their mouth is, because there's a lot of Black people. Oh, it's 5%, 8% of Black folk is now voting Republican, and we don't, democracy as we know it is over. No. See, we shouldn't be these party hoes. We're going from this party to that party, this party to that party. They're playing on fear. They plan on this. They plan on a border. They plan on Israel. They plan on Russia. All these things they're used to manipulate. And then when they come to talk to the Black community, they go to your local church because they said the pastors are Black folks' leader. They go to your local or national athlete because they know athletes are the leaders of Black people. They go to a world-renowned Black American comedian because they know comedians are the leaders of black folks. They go to your actors and actresses because they know they are the leaders of the black community. They don't go to the grassroots community leader. They don't go to them. They don't go to black intellectuals that are on code. They don't go to black historians to justify the $40 trillion that's owed to black Americans. And you can go to the Library of Congress and the things that were supposedly be given. They don't go to them, family. Oh, hell no. They go to the people that entertain black folk, that black folk tune into more than anything else. That's what they go to. That's what they go to. That's exactly who they go to. Because when we say these things, it's important to note that these are not, just requests. These are demands based on debt owed for centuries of unpaid labor and systematic discrimination. Because being discriminated upon will cost you money. You don't have the same rights as other citizens to move about freely and economically because of discrimination, which caused you and your family and your generation money. So reparations are owed based upon unpaid labor and systematic discrimination. We even have a term for when the system started, it really started right after slavery, but the Jim Crow era that led into the 60s, just ended in the early 70s. And if you was born in the 70s, then you were part at, basically at the end of Jim Crow, but nonetheless, you're young enough and old enough to understand the two constructions of that time frame. Because remember, the Civil Rights Act, while significant for other people, and it helped us a little bit. I'm not going to inflate it or deflate it. It helped us a little bit. But that wasn't the end of our struggle. It was a step, but we need more steps, concrete actions that address the economic and social disparities we face daily, either directly or indirectly. So until the Republican Party, or any party for that matter, comes forward with tangible solutions, I'm telling you right now, Couch 2024, family, our support for any political party, in my opinion, should not be guaranteed. It should be earned through actions, not empty promises. So next time a Republican of any level, whether it be a candidate or just a walking Republican, comes knocking, asking you your stance and or for your vote, ask them this right here. Ask them, where's our tangibles? Have you signed a reparations bill yet? Is it on your table? Do you have all your pens ready? Where are our tangibles? Where are the reparations? What about the anti-hate crime bill for Black Americans? What about the land grants? What about the tax exemption status? Everything that you gave the Native Americans, and guess what? Because of the free labor and discriminating of other folk, has made us the most powerful and richest country in the world, to the point where we are monetary sovereign and we can print money on a governmental level. You see, what people don't understand, Japan and America are similar because they both monetary government, where monetary sovereigns, where the government controls the currency. Oh, how can we print so much money? How can we print so much money and we don't have the gold to back it? Because we're monetary sovereign, we can do whatever hell we want. And whether they form the BRICS and they're forming all different sorts of currency based upon gold, I'm gonna tell you right now, family, as long as we have all the rockets, we'll stand. Okay, we'll stand. Let's look at this really quickly. United States history, Civil War, 1861 to 65. They fought for 4 years, family. United States colored troops, United States Continental Army, Black American troops, slavery, United States Armed Forces, Black Americans. I'm just pointing out some of the headings here that may have you to spawn into ideas of things that needs to be done. Okay. And see, and that's what we kind of went over there, family, is the unvarnished and unapologetic truth. And I understand that a lot of people may not experience racism. There's some Black people that may not experience racism. There's some Black people who may not think they have experienced discrimination. And it may be true. I just don't know. Because there are some people who say they haven't experienced the same things that others have. Well, I'm only speaking from my own personal experience. Because I've been discriminated upon. I've been brutalized by the police. I've been racially profiled. And if someone has not been through that, I totally understand their position. When they speak about how Black folk can essentially help themselves and empower themselves, I can get into a bunch of excuses. I can get to a bunch of excuses of how that's very difficult. I can go into education and how we need funding for education. But family, let's be truthful. With the World Wide Web, when it comes to education, we can become edumacated. Can we not? Edumacated? We can become edumacated. We can clip out of a lot of college courses. There's a lot of things we can do if we saved our money up from the Wendy's that we work at. We can go into trades. There's many solutions. So we, first and foremost, as our fight for reparation continues, that don't mean we stop progressing. That doesn't mean we stop building businesses. That doesn't stop of us getting degrees and trades and skills that we can then empower ourselves. A lot of that starts with education. And that doesn't mean formal education. It may just be education and starting your own business. There have been many people who built million and billion-dollar businesses with a high school diploma or less. And there's very simple things that we can do, like, for instance, economic empowerment, because we really do need to circulate the Black dollar within our communities for those Black-owned businesses. Invest in Black entrepreneurs, because economic independence is a cornerstone of the true empowerment of a people. That's why you hear all these other people supporting their own businesses. When we want to have Indian food, we go to an Indian restaurant, or people from the Mediterranean go to a Mediterranean restaurant, etc. We see majority of those people in there because they're supporting their neighborhood community and or businesses of people who share their same culture. Because the one thing that people want to point out as talking points is, remember the Black Wall Street? Well, first and foremost, understanding history and historically of all the different Black Wall Streets we have, of all the different Black business districts we had, and what happened to them. Because a lot of them were thriving. They were self-sufficient. We had self-sufficient Black communities, but they was destroyed. In the early 1900s, would it be 1919 throughout 1921, 1922. And even through those different times, we continue to build, but through riots and looting and this, that, and the other, we were tearing up our own neighborhoods or not. They no longer exist. Now, there are some places like Atlanta and Houston where there's thriving Black businesses and they're doing very, very well. But we really need to build that spirit of economic solidarity. And to a certain degree, we need to have political engagement. That doesn't mean vote. That means be aware, be knowledgeable, be informed. We need to have those talks at the table where decisions are made. That means looking and informing yourself about every election, especially on the local and state levels, because the local and state level are the ones that will directly affect you the fastest. Okay, close proximity to, again, you live in that county, you live in that community. And to some regards, we have a lot of intelligent Black brothers and sisters that should be running for office. And if you're not running for office, supporting those candidates that have our best interests at heart. Because listen, family, if there's a Black American trying to get a position, let's just say he grassroots, but he's not talking tangibles. And you get someone who's non-Black, I hope I don't ruffle nobody's feathers. And you get somebody who's non-Black and they say, well, I'm gonna give you cash payment reparations, similar to like this task force in California. We're gonna do X, Y, and Z. Now we're still waiting on the verdict of that. If that's gonna come into fruition or not. We don't know if that's gonna come into fruition, but if it does, then that can be a blueprint for other states to follow. And guess whatever political party in those states do that, I guarantee that is the party that Black folk will be supporting. So either people are running for office or supporting candidates that's running for office. We have to look at who have our best interests at heart and hold them accountable, no matter their color. Because look at the non-impact of the Congressional Black Caucus, a do-nothing organization that's federally funded. And there's a lot of tethers in there from other countries who are making sure they're talking fast, but no tangible being awarded or given. We need to have some sort of legal awareness. We must know some of the laws and how to use them to our advantage. Understanding your own rights when dealing with law enforcement. Because supposedly the Fourth Amendment protects us against unreasonable searches and seizures. But without knowledge, it's just words on a paper. A lot of us are getting incarcerated discriminately for illegal searches and illegal seizures. We have to look at the bigger picture, because empowerment also means demanding reparations and justice. They're one of the same. So forget all the poppycock of people trying to lean left or lean right, lean liberal, lean conservative. We need to hold what you got. We need to hold what we have, because our only power stance, our only bargaining chip is our vote. And we continue to give our vote to these political parties who basically come in empty-handed, then we're going to continue as a group. Now, there's always going to be Black folk that do well, but the vast majority of us will not. And that's a fact. Because if that's not a fact, show me indicators, show me improvement, show me increases of Black folk doing better than we ever done before. You would think modern times, internet, innovations and technology, that somehow will be decreasing the wealth gap on our own. No. There's still some form of systematic discrimination going on, family. You're still hearing stories about discrimination when it comes to housing, the appraisal of housing, which is one of the quickest ways for anyone to obtain wealth. Take, for instance, you buy a home that's $150,000. 3 years go past, now that home is worth $250,000. So now you have $100,000 in equity. You want to start a business. You want to send your kids through college. So you take a loan out and grab some of that equity to start your business, to put your kids through college, to pay for a major surgery, to maybe buy a vehicle, whatever the case may be. Buying a home is an investment that you can store up wealth to utilize later in many different ways. Let me read some of your comments. Let's see here. Montgomery says the native Indians have treaties that were broken. That's why they have federally exempt land. Okay. Reparations were paid to the former slaves who wanted it. So there were slaves who did not want reparations. Okay. So Montgomery, if that's true, okay, and I'm not saying that it's not, post a link, a federal link in the chat of slaves getting paid reparations. Please post the federal, okay, the federal site in which that supposedly was granted. He also stated that obviously you were not there, so quit trying to capitalize on what you're not entitled to, and that I'm a fool. Okay. Everybody's entitled to their own opinion. Sunkid says they will stall forever. I see my good mod in here, Jermaine Anderson. Okay, please hit that like button, share on your social medias, and please subscribe to the channel. Real Woman says, yep, we see they always move the goalposts. Absolutely. Absolutely. President 48 said there is no reward or process going to Republican Party. Plus, they know you vote blue no matter who mindset as a collective group of people. And unfortunately, that have been the truth for us for quite some time now. See, I can't refute what President 48 is saying, because that has been it. We've been constantly tricked. Empty promises, and our people have been falling for it, unfortunately. Because let's just be truthful, family. A lot of Black Americans are politically dumb. We're politically stupid. That's just the truth of the matter, fam. We are politically ignorant. Because I know a lot of people don't like the word stupid and dumb. To me, those words just mean that you don't know. So I use, let's say, politically uninformed for the sake of argument. We're politically uninformed. But nonetheless, family, when you look at the federal documents that has been presented, there's not many documents that was going to grant reparations. And one of the major documents out there was this Special Order number 15. And we're getting to the continuation here. It says, on some water channel with not more than 800 feet front, in the possession of which land the military authorities will afford them protection, the military authorities will afford them protection until such time as they can protect themselves, or until Congress shall regulate their title. The quartermaster may, on the requisition of the inspector of settlements and plantation, place at the disposal of the inspector one or more of the captured steamers to apply between the settlements and one or more of the commercial points heretofore named in orders, to afford the settlers the opportunity to supply the necessary wants and to sell the products of their land and labor. Whenever a Negro has enlisted in the military service of the United States, he may locate his family in any one of the settlements at pleasure and acquire a homestead and all other rights and privileges of a settler as though present in person. Okay, they wanted to strengthen the Union Army, and that was one of the perks. In like manner, Negroes may settle their families and engage on board the gunboats or in fishing or in the navigation of the inland waters without losing any claim to land or other advantage derived from this system. But no one, unless an actual settler as above defined, or unless absent of government service, will be entitled to claim any right to land or property in any settlement by the virtue of these orders. Because in order to carry out this system of settlement, a general officer will be detailed as inspector of settlements and plantation, whose duty it shall be to visit the settlements to regulate their police and general management, and who will furnish personally to each head of a family subject to the approval of the President of the United States. Okay. And then he states here, President General R. Saxon is hereby appointed inspector of the settlements and plantation and will at once enter on the performance of his duties. No change is intended or desired in the settlement now on Beaufort Island, nor will any rights to property heretofore acquired be effective thereby. And this is by the order of Major General W.T. Sherman. okay, and the adjutant major assistant general, L.M. Dayton. Okay, real document, family. So that was in a form of reparation. And I guess going back to the persons here and says, that we are not entitled to anything and that I'm a fool. I always like to go back to the Homestead Act. I like to go back to land being given to white European peasants was a form of socialism and welfare, and how lands, just as well as in England, though kings and queens and those monarchs, land and power was passed down, right? And land in any regards is always a sign and show of power, depending on how much land you have, right? And the ability to cultivate that land, and would it be agriculture, or you build a big parking lot and you charge everybody $10 a day, whatever you do with the land to accumulate revenue and growth in order to build your empire. But we have to understand that a lot of land that white people have today have been passed down generationally. And see, when they tell us, and I'll pop it up again, when they tell us quit trying to capitalize on what you're not entitled to, then why is it that land that was given to white Europeans are still, majority of that land is in those white people's families today that has been passed down to generation? That's what they mean by generational wealth. And even if they sold that land, they bought new land, and or they used that money, whether it be for sending their kids to college, they used the wealth they had by generations past to propel their family in generations forward. See, we didn't have that same foundation because it wasn't given, it was taken, it was destroyed, it was stolen. And see, I tend not to get into arguments with people who say those things because they're just white supremacist talking points. Because either one, they're lazy and won't do the research and understand why foundational Black Americans are owed the land, or two, they understand why the land is stolen, but again, they would just like to be a suspected white supremacist and say silly shit on the internet because they troll. That's all. That's all. Let's see what President 48 here before I get out of here, family. Your voting power and leverage comes from a community environment, which is solely segregation mindset and working together as one unit for a long-term agenda plan for the future and broke, recycle, and for good. No voting in this crazy, stupid president election. Let the other groups of people plus migrant put Joe Biden or Donald Trump in the Oval Office second term as president. The couch. Cannot agree with you more. We got the couch crew in the house, got the couch crew. Shout out goes out to the couch crew 2024. Because people say, well, if you don't vote, then Donald Trump is going to get in office. And then some people say, well, I'm going to vote, but I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I'm not saying that Donald Trump will win, but the race will be close. And guess what? If neither side is going to provide tangibles, then neither side will get my vote.